Late into the night, under the stark white glow of fluorescent lights, the desolate stretch of highway felt more like the backdrop of a noir film than the setting of a typical truck stop. At the lone gas station that served as a beacon for weary travelers and truckers alike, the air hung heavy with the scent of diesel and the distant rumble of engines. Jack Turner, a 45-year-old trucker with a solid build and the quiet demeanor of a seasoned loner, maneuvered his 18-wheeler into the station. His truck, a well-worn but meticulously maintained Peterbilt, groaned softly as it came to a halt beside the pump. Jack stepped out, his boots crunching on the gravel, his eyes scanning the area with an ingrained habit born from years of navigating more dangerous terrains than this. Clad in a faded flannel shirt and denim jeans, Jack moved with a purposeful ease, his every action smooth and assured. His face, marked by the lines of time and tinted by the sun, bore a stoic expression that rarely changed, not even now, as the distant sound of motorcycles grew louder, breaking the monotony of the night's quiet. The approaching roar crescendoed into a cacophony as a biker gang rolled into the gas station, their engines cutting through the stillness like knives. The gang, notorious in this part of the state for their petty crimes and harassment of lone travelers, made no attempt to quiet their entrance. They parked their bikes in a semicircle around Jack, effectively trapping him between their chrome and leather presence and his truck. Leading the pack was Vince, a hulking figure with a scarred face and a sneer that seemed permanently etched onto his features. He wore his authority like his leather vest, adorned with patches and insignia that told stories of brawls and bravado. As he dismounted, his eyes locked onto Jack, assessing him as one might assess a prize before a fight. "You're a long way from anywhere, old-timer," Vince called out, his voice gruff with amusement and threat. His gang echoed his sentiment, chuckling and jeering as they closed in. Jack turned slowly to face them, his expression unreadable. "Just passing through," he replied, his voice even, betraying none of the tension that the situation warranted. His eyes, however, told a different story, alert and calculating, reminiscent of a predator waiting for the right moment. "Not before you pay the toll," Vince smirked, stepping closer. "This is our turf, and the toll's $100 or whatever you got in that big rig." The other gang members laughed, their demeanor relaxed, confident in their numbers and the apparent vulnerability of their target. But Jack didn't react as they expected. Instead of showing fear or opening his wallet, he simply leaned against his truck, crossing his arms. "Boys, I've driven through war zones and dodged more bullets than you've had hot dinners. If you're wise, you'll get on those bikes and ride away while you still can," Jack said quietly, his tone not threatening but matter of fact. The laughter died down as the bikers exchanged uncertain glances. Vince's face hardened. "Trying to scare us, Grandpa? You picked the wrong crowd." As the tension escalated, the night air seemed to thicken, charged with the electricity of impending conflict. What the gang didn't realize was that they weren't just confronting a lone trucker. They were challenging a retired military convoy driver whose calm was forged in the fires of combat. A man who viewed their menace as little more than a nuisance. The standoff at the gas station grew taut as a bowstring as the seconds ticked by, each moment stretching long under the harsh glare of the overhead lights. The gang members shifted uneasily, their earlier bravado cooling in the face of Jack's unwavering calm. Vince, however, was not one to back down easily, especially not in front of his crew. "Look, Grandpa," Vince sneered, taking a step closer to intimidate the lone trucker. "This isn't a movie, and you're no hero. Just hand over the cash, and maybe you won't have to find out how bad we can be." Yet Jack straightened up from his casual lean against the truck. His eyes swept over the gang, a flicker of something unreadable passing through them. "Boys," he began, his voice steady, "I've stared down the barrel of guns held by men a lot scarier than you. So, I'm giving you one last chance to walk away." The bikers laughed, the sound harsh and mocking, but there was an undercurrent of unease now. They were used to easy targets, not old men who talked like they could handle a fight. Vince waved off Jack's warning with a dismissive hand. "Enough of this," he growled. "Let's show him what happens to heroes." As the lead biker swung his fist, aiming for what he thought would be an easy hit, Jack's training kicked in with the fluid precision of a well-oiled machine. He stepped inside the arc of the punch, grabbed Vince's wrist, and twisted it back, using Vince's own momentum to spin him around and push him face first into the side of the truck with a dull thud. The sudden violence of the maneuver shocked the other bikers into momentary stillness. Jack held Vince firmly against the truck, his voice low and hard. "I didn't want this, but you didn't leave me much choice." Vince struggled, his face contorted in pain and rage, but Jack's grip was unyielding. The other gang members finally snapped out of their shock, rushing forward to help their leader. But Jack was ready. He released Vince, stepping back just as another biker reached him. With a swift move, he dodged a punch, grabbed the attacker by his jacket, and hurled him into two others approaching from the side. The collision sent them sprawling to the ground in a tangle of limbs. The remaining bikers hesitated, their confidence shattered by the older man's unexpected prowess. Jack stood alone, breathing evenly, his posture relaxed but ready. His eyes swept over the gang, silently daring them to try their luck again. Vince, rubbing his wrist and grimacing, pushed himself off the truck. His eyes burned with humiliation and anger, but he was smart enough to recognize when he was outmatched. He spat on the ground near Jack's feet, a final gesture of defiance. "This isn't over, old man," he hissed. "Go home, son," Jack replied, his voice devoid of mockery. "Learn from this and think twice next time you decide to pick on someone." With a final glare, Vince signaled to his gang and they mounted their bikes. The roar of engines filled the air as they sped away, leaving behind a cloud of exhaust and a heavy silence. Jack watched them disappear into the night, then turned back to his truck. He finished pumping gas, his movements deliberate and slow, as if he was giving himself time to come down from the adrenaline high. The encounter had stirred memories he preferred to keep buried, echoes of gunshots and the sharp sting of danger. But it had also reaffirmed something within him, a strength he knew he still possessed, no matter how peaceful his current life seemed. As he climbed into his truck, Jack let out a long, slow breath, feeling the weight of the night's events settle around him. He started the engine, the familiar rumble a comforting sound in the aftermath of the confrontation. Pulling out of the gas station, Jack drove off into the night, his truck's headlights cutting a swath through the darkness. He was alone again, but he carried with him the quiet confidence of a man who had faced down death and lived to tell the tale. As the roar of the bikers' engines faded into the distance, Jack sat silently in his truck cab, the remaining adrenaline slowly seeping from his system. He stared out into the darkness, the quiet of the night now returning to blanket everything around him. The sharp contrast between the calmness of the night and the chaos of the confrontation lingered in his mind, a reminder of the unpredictability of life, even one that had moved on from combat zones to civilian tranquility. He pulled out of the gas station, his truck's large tires crunching over the gravel. The road ahead was illuminated only by his headlights, casting long shadows that danced across the asphalt. As he drove, Jack's thoughts turned inward, reflecting on the encounter. Despite the years that had passed since his service, his military instincts had kicked in effortlessly, a testament to the depth of his training and the indelible mark it had left on him. Mental echoes of conflict. Jack's mind replayed the moments of the skirmish, not with pride, but with a clinical detachment that had been drilled into him. Each movement, each decision to engage or neutralize, had been automatic, almost without thought. This muscle memory, so valuable in combat, was a stark contrast to his daily life, where the biggest decisions often involved route planning and load scheduling. Yet, the night's events had stirred something within him, a part of him that lay dormant, overshadowed by the mundane aspects of daily life, yet ever vigilant, ever ready to surface when threatened. It was this part of him that he both revered and resented, revered for the protection it afforded him, and resented for the constant reminder of a past he could never fully leave behind. Silent witnesses. As he continued driving, the night seemed to close in around him. His truck passed occasional streetlights that flickered as he went by, each flash a brief illumination of his solitary figure within the cab. He thought of the onlookers at the gas station, those silent witnesses to his unexpected display of defense. What did they see, he wondered? A hero? A relic from a bygone era of conflict? Or simply a man who wished to be left in peace? Jack knew that to the outside world, he might appear unremarkable, just another trucker navigating the endless highways. But beneath his calm exterior was a history written in the language of warfare, in skills honed in the harshest environments imaginable. The quiet road home. The rest of the drive was uneventful, the hum of the engine a constant companion as the miles slipped away under his wheels. When Jack finally turned into the driveway of his modest home, the first hints of dawn were touching the sky, the darkness giving way to shades of blue and gray. Stepping out of his truck, Jack felt the stiffness in his muscles, a reminder of the night's exertions. He looked back at the road, considering all the miles he'd traveled, both literally and metaphorically. The tranquility of his home, with its promise of solitude and rest, seemed like a sanctuary by comparison. As he locked the truck and headed inside, Jack made a silent vow to keep driving, keep living, keep moving forward. Because no matter how far he drove, he understood that the roads he traveled were just as much about the journeys within as they were about the destinations they led to. He shut the door behind him, the soft click a punctuation mark to the night. Inside, the quiet was a balm, the familiar spaces a reminder of the life he had built away from the battlefield. But as he settled down and the adrenaline finally ebbed away completely, Jack knew that no matter how serene his surroundings, part of him would always be on that highway, always watching, always ready.